Ross, I feel lucky. I feel privileged because like 2 times in less than a week, we are joined by the man, the myth, the legend, the athletic director at Drake University, Brian Hardin.
He's certainly turning into a legend. That's for sure. I know you don't like it. Brian, kick another home run. Well, listen, let's be honest. Yeah, pump the brakes on the home run of a hire, but nice job. Congratulations on getting through this process so quickly. When we talked to you last time, I'll be honest, I asked you that about time frame. You made me a little bit nervous because I thought your response was a little bit nonchalant. You're like, I'm not in a hurry here. We'll figure this thing out. I thought, damn, dude, the portal's open. Got to go fast. Did this happen faster than you thought, or this the time frame that you were hoping for?
No, it didn't happen faster than I thought. I kind of had a sense that maybe we could go in this direction here, but I needed to, I wasn't going to go into it. Like I said last week, there's like, hey, we've got a preferred candidate in mind. Like, no, there are certain things that we needed to make sure that that the criteria matched up. And so the way that it worked out, it just so happened that I had some familiarity with Eric. I talked to him last year during this process. And so a lot of it was just kind of going through some of my notes from last year and being able to just kind of update some things. So it was like we talked about, there wasn't a whole lot of dust on the list of names from last year. So just kind of updating that and updating maybe some of the criteria, be able to move forward.
What is it? Where does the interview take place? Do you do it on Zoom? Does he come to Des Moines? Did you drive to Omaha? He drove from Brookings down to Omaha. What does that look like?
Yeah, I was actually in your neck of the woods, Travis. Yeah. So
really?
After I talked to you guys, I got in a car that same day and drove over and met with them that afternoon. So yeah, I actually holed up there at the beautiful Fairfield Inn there in Northwest Omaha, kind of by Blair. You probably know.
Dude, you could have used my house. I mean, nobody's here during the day. I would have just given you the keys.
It crossed my mind. I mean, it's the first time when I hired DeVries, I went over to and sat in his living room. But a lot of the other folks I talked to, I brought into Des Moines, and we actually conducted it at my parents' house in Windsor Heights at the time because my family hadn't moved here from Milwaukee yet. We hadn't found our home here in Johnston. And so I did stuff in my parents' living room, which is kind of interesting.
And it is, Brian, you've got to be cautious of doing this in like a public space. I mean, you joke about not being, when we say you legend, your eyes roll. But if you were seen at, the Drake Diner, that's going to get on Twitter pretty quick.
Well, that's exactly. So on Friday, Eric was in town to meet with my boss. And so we went out to breakfast and we went down to Homegrown and down there by Big Grove. And I'm like, ooh, I kind of held my breath going in there, at 9:00 on a Friday morning. I'm like, oh gosh. And I told him, I said, we could never do this at the Drake Diner. I mean, that would it would just be all over everywhere if that was the case. But yeah, so I ended up, I went over there and just kind of conducted some interviews there, then came back here and did some stuff here. But yeah, so in that specific example, it was, we did some stuff there in Omaha.
Was Eric the only guy you interviewed, or did you do multiple interviews?
Yeah, I think I talked to maybe 7 folks.
Really?
And so just trying to, a lot of it is making sure that I'm thinking through this again. It's not just zeroing in on one person. I will say, I mean, just from the time that Eric walked in, and I'm not sure if you guys had a chance to meet him before. I don't know, Travis, if you guys have crossed paths at all.
We haven't.
Yeah, we haven't. It's just he has this infectious personality, man, and it is he is just so positive, and he's got a big personality, which is befitting of his 6'8" frame, and so he comes in and just owns the place. And talking to Greg McDermott about it, I mean, he made the comment, he goes, whenever he's having a really crummy day, maybe he used other words, he calls him though, because it immediately feels better, just because. And so TJ's the same way, and so that TJ was great about it. And so anyways, I talked to it last week probably about like energy, passion, vision as things we needed. Like his energy just off the charts, man, and what he's going to add to our department. And there probably is something to the fact that his personality probably is what our fan base needs right now. We've got some folks who are still feel kind of jilted by how things went down, and in time that's going to pass, and they'll be forever grateful to what Ben did for our program and what he showed, what Drake is capable of. But that energy that Hendo's going to bring in here is going to be fantastic. His passion for working with young men. I mean, he's an educator at heart. I mean, he spent time, obviously, he played for McDermott. Coached with him, was on the staff up at Iowa State. But then he got into education and was a second grade teacher.
Wow.
Ninth grade girls basketball, was a high school athletic director at a Catholic high school there in Burlington, Wisconsin. And so at his core, he's an educator. And that to me is really important, especially at a school like Drake. Like, you've got to be able to identify those kids and then coach them up. And then that's going to be a big part of it here. And then his vision was the last thing kind of sold me on it was, my goodness, like where he thinks this thing can go. Like he wants to get back to the tournament. He wants to win games, wants to get to that second weekend, and play on. What does that look like? And I think lastly for me was just, he's done this before. I mean, he's now, South Dakota State has a great athletics department. And truth be told, like when I got into Drake, I mean, I studied, what Jamie's done, what he did at Iowa State, Justin Sells, the AD at South Dakota State. Like, they've done some things that I try to figure, okay, how can I localize that here to Drake? And he comes from a department up there that does things the right way, hires really good people. He's the third straight coach at South Dakota State that has continued to elevate the program, from Scott Nagy to TJ Alselberger and then Hendo. He's not going to be intimidated by walking in and following, what Darren and Ben put in place here. So I for all those reasons, I just feel great about what Eric's going to bring to Drake men's basketball.
Brian, you mentioned that you got one more.
Well, I was going to say, you reinforced that if you're doing a resume out there, references matter, because you just mentioned that you called TJ and you called Greg McDermott. So you're actually one who calls character references.
I think it's a big deal. I talk to athletic directors basically almost every head coach that I talk to. I spoke with their athletic directors just to make them aware that I was talking to them, but also to kind of get a sense of kind of what it is. And then maybe some of that's because maybe I feel jilted because no one's ever really reached out to me to talk to me about the head coaches on our staff that they wanted to hire, except for Megan Franklin when she was hiring Todd to go up to Iowa State. And actually the AD who called the most was Joe Castiglione at Oklahoma when he was hiring Jenny Baranchik to be the women's coach. He called 3 different times. And so I'm like, well, gosh, Joe is like the most well-respected athletic director in the country, and he's at Oklahoma. If the Oklahoma AD can call the lowly Drake AD 3 times to talk about a coach, certainly I can take some notes from that and do the same thing. So
Beth Getz never called you to say, hey, what's Ben like? We
exchanged text messages. I wanted to know from her, like, what's your timeline and what's that going to look like. But that was kind of the extent of the conversation. That's fine. Everybody's got their own way of doing things. But I just certainly, what I learned from Justin, from talking to him about what Hendo's like at South Dakota State, you get some insight into kind of who they are as people, what their strengths are. And his comment to me was, he's a great coach. He has done wonderful things to continue to elevate our program. If this were to work out for you, he goes, what I would miss about him most is just what a great teammate he is in our department. I mean, what he does, it's so rare when you can have one of your premier coaches or your premier programs out there on the front lines, helping your department and kind of move it forward, be present for a lot of activities, make sure that they're always there for all the meetings, that they're out there for any department community events. They're out there leading the charge. He goes, that can help, instill or make sure that your the culture in your department can be as strong as it can be. And he said that's Eric. Eric does an amazing job of getting out there and doing everything that you would want anybody else in your department to do. It just so happens he has a pretty big title.
Brian, you mentioned that the criteria had changed slightly from last year to this year. What were some of the things that you added to that criteria?
Yeah, I think just kind of the realization maybe where we're at as a program. I only spoke to head coaches this time around. I did not talk to any assistant coaches, and there were some really high level assistant coaches. My 8th grader is going up to school right now. There were some really like some of the head coaches of the programs. I mean, these are programs that were 1, 2, 3 seeds in the tournament that were playing deep into March, and I just felt like where we were at, we needed someone who had been around established programs. And so a lot of the folks I talked to had called timeouts in NCAA tournament games. And they knew kind of what the opportunities were going to be, what the challenges were going to be here. I think there are tremendous assistant coaches that are going to be fantastic head coaches. But I just felt like kind of where our program is now compared to maybe where it was when a year ago or when we hired Darren, a number of years ago. we needed to find someone who could come in and knew who they were going to surround themselves with, knew the kind of kids they and had some leads on some of that to help kind of build and maintain our roster. Had gone through the process of losing some kids and rebuilding the roster. And you look at what Eric did. I mean, he's attracted some really good players in his time. Baylor Shireman did an amazing job, and then went off to Creighton. What he did with the team last year, they got to the tournament and played Iowa State. He lost 2 high major players off that team.
Yeah.
He lost the kid
One
to
went to
Kansas, the other
Kansas,
kid
right?
to UCLA. And you'd think, okay, well, there's going to be a huge drop off. Well, he played primarily freshmen and redshirt freshmen this year. He brought in the kid from Washington State to kind of be that anchor in the middle. And they finished 3rd this year. It's the first time they finished outside of the top 2 in league play. And that was after losing 2 all league Power 5 guys and playing a bunch of, first year players. Like, my gosh, like if he can do that, like they were going to be a monster next year. And so if I don't hire him now, like he definitely is going to get some big time offers a year from now, because that roster at SDSU was positioned to take a huge jump in the next year. So those are some of the things I was kind of looking at. I was trying to figure out where are we at right now? Where do we need to go? What's going to best position us for the future?
Is one of your interview questions, if you win next year, will you stay at least 2 years?
I'm going to try to put in some type of clause into the contract that says, we're going to retain a percentage of your future earnings as we come back to our men's basketball excellence fund. We can keep growing this thing.
Well, I mean, in all seriousness, now is the hardest negotiation of a contract the buyout portion, or is it the actual salary portion of it?
No, it's the buyout piece. I mean, that was the only thing that maybe his agent and I went back and forth on a little bit. It's because it's human nature to kind of like to see a big number out there as a buyout and be like, whoa, and get sticker shock. And I get it. I mean, but the reality is, the programs that would come calling, they don't bat an eye at it. I mean, we've seen a lot of bigger numbers thrown out in this offseason for coaches go from one spot to another than what what we agreed to in the term sheet here for Endo. So I understand the sticker shock, but the reality is if he has the kind of success here, first of all, we want to keep him here. We're not. I'm not ready to do this a year from now. So we want to do this for as long as we can, and continue to make it hard for him to leave. And I think that we've got great fan support that's going to allow that to happen. But certainly, there's hardly a number out there these days. It seems like that somebody else out there isn't willing to bite off.
Okay, along those lines, then you also talked about vision, and that was one of the conversations you had with Hendo. What does that conversation sound like around that framework of great success means the phone is going to ring? What does vision sound like? Yeah,
we really don't get into hey, the hypotheticals of if we do this, if we do everything that you say we can do, what does that mean for you long term? Like I said this last week. I'd rather be around somebody. What's that?
Cross those bridges when you get there.
Yeah, and again, I'd rather be around somebody great for 2 or 3 years than somebody mediocre for 5 or 6. And so let's do it, man. Let's go for it. And we have that type of success. We win 25 to 30 games. We win the league. We get back into the tournament. We win some more games in that space. Like, awesome. Like that's going to be. We'll be developing incredible memories and experiences for those student athletes, the staff members, our fans, our alumni. Sign me up for that. Like we'll deal with that other stuff down the road. But yeah, I mean, everything that we're going to go about between now and then, and that journey piece, like that's important. And Eric's going to be a great person to go along on that journey with.
I want to go back to the money situation. So you had West Virginia pay you what, $1.5 million a couple years ago for Darren. I'm sure Iowa's paying you for Ben. Does that money go back in the general operating budget, or does that go into your revenue share portion? Because I mean, essentially it's free money, right? I mean, it's like you're not out any money, but you're getting money in return. Are you able to turn that and put that into your revenue share?
Yeah. So what we do is we take a significant percentage of that, and it goes back into our men's basketball excellence fund, is what we call it, kind of like the restricted space for. So folks, when they give to Drake, there's different buckets they can give to, and like restricted use dollars, where it just kind of goes into one spot, and those dollars can roll over year. We're getting kind of inside baseball here with how our budget works, but yeah. So that we have a men's basketball excellence fund that folks want. As all of our sports do. So you want to give a sport, you give dollars to the Bulldog Club, and have it go to anybody in our department, any student athlete to help their program, you can do that. That's unrestricted giving. If you want to know that, hey, it's going to, help Joe Woodley in football, or it's going to help Jay Coliseus in the cross country and track and field, or you want to get to Drake relays or any of our either our basketball programs, you can do that. And in this case here, we take those dollars and we put it into to our men's basketball excellence fund.
Brian Hardin joining us on the Rush Radio Show. Of course, Eric Henderson, the new head coach at Drake University. He'll be officially introduced to the Des Moines community tomorrow. He did help me out with some...
Actually, I'll break some news. We're going to show this later. We're actually going to delay it a week. So we're going to do it a week from today. So we'll send out news here later today. But actually, in talking with Hendo on Friday night, he was already working on bringing kids in for recruiting visits. And talking to our head of compliance, Alex Krell, he said that, I didn't realize this. I probably should have known this, that we're in the middle of a recruiting window that ends midnight Wednesday night. And then we go into a dead period around the Final Four. So for a week from April 3rd to April 10th, it's a dead period. So no recruiting activities. So I asked Eric, I said, hey, would you be better served not taking a half day out of your schedule on Tuesday for our press conference and stuff and allowing yourself to recruit? And we'll take that press conference and move it to some other window during the dead period. He's like, that would be amazing, because he's got kids lined up to come in. He's going to see kids. He's building out a staff. And so we're going to actually move that to a week from today. So during the dead period, it allows his family also to come down over the weekend, only miss one day of school to be here for the announcement and introduction next Monday. So we are going to update what we put into the press release last week that you're probably referencing. So so no introduction tomorrow. We'll do that a week from today.
Breaking news on the Rush Radio Show. So
that's why you watch this.
Exactly. So your eighth grader just went out the door for school. I have a feeling you probably owe your wife and kids a nice little spring break vacation or getaway, right?
Absolutely, yes. As usual, Kara's back always hurts from carrying our family, but it was even worse, more so this past week. So that's a huge thanks to them. The eighth grader now is getting to a point where he's trying to figure out who I'm talking to and that kind of stuff. And so I don't tell him, because I don't want to, put him in that position where he's got teachers and friends at school trying to ask him what's going on. And I don't want to have, he's not a very good liar, so he's out a good poker face. So he knew that I left town last Tuesday, and he talked and he, hey, where are you? And I would say one time I told him I was in Chicago. Another time I told him in Minneapolis. And so then I came back home, middle of last week, and he goes, so where were you last week? And I said, I think I was down in Kansas City. And he goes, wait, you told me you were in Chicago and Minneapolis. I said, oh yeah, I was somewhere like that. He goes, Dad, you have Life 360 on your phone. I know you were in Omaha. I was able to find it. I'm like, oh no.
Never give the kids the location.
I know.
Give the kids the location.
I got to go in right now and change. All right, well, take that setting off. He can't track me. I want to only be able to track his whereabouts.
As soon as you said the eighth grader was walking out, I wrote that down, because I have a freshman, and I know he's got a lot of opinions about everything that I do. So I was thinking that same thing. I would imagine the eighth grader at some point came in and said, all right, Dad, I've got your top 10 here.
Yeah, that's right.
Here's your targets, right, Dad?
Yep. Yeah. He had kind of heard some of the things I had said and made some notes, and he apparently was telling my wife, okay, I think he's talking to this person. Here's who I think he's talking to, these folks here. And so he was, he had on a wall in his bedroom, he was like a thing that strings attached to different folks. And
he's going to be an FBI agent.
That's right. Well,
you were raising an FBI agent.
Well, my wife's a former prosecutor, and so his grandma is a former assistant U.S. attorney, and so they have some of those skills, and Caro's so proud because he's got some of me in him. He's not just a basketball and sports junkie like you. He actually has some stuff that actually maybe could help him in his life. I'm like,
hold on. Your wife's a former prosecutor. You don't win an argument. You do not win an argument.
Look at that face.
She was a former prosecutor. My mother-in-law is a former U.S. attorney, and my father-in-law is a former judge. There is no BSing in my house. It is I'm on the stand 24/7, just getting grilled by prosecutors. It's just oh my God. So honesty is the only policy, because they're going to see right through me.
You ever go, why'd you marry me?
All the time. I punch way above my weight class here. It's something. I'll kick the coverage, whatever you want to say, whatever sports and analogy in there. And it's just man, she's just she clearly, was desperate and has settled for somebody like me. And I'm forever grateful for it.
You got the number. Next time you drive over west, you can give me a call. I won't tell people who you're meeting with. I'll buy you a beer.
I will. Hopefully, it's not for a long time, but I'll
no kidding. No,
yeah.
Good point on that.
In all seriousness, and I want to be respectful of your time, but Missouri State is leaving the Missouri Valley Conference. Is the conference going to add another team? There's a lot of people in my neck of the woods that would like to see Omaha, UNO, which made the tournament, go into the Missouri Valley because there's that connection, the former connection with Creighton.
Yeah.
Will the Valley expand, and do you have any insight on who those teams might be?
I do think we'll expand. I don't have any insight. I know there's a lot of interested parties. I know that my boss is a lot of the stuff comes down to presidents and chancellors that kind of determine the stuff. My boss this year is serving as the head of the Missouri Valley Conference Presidents Group, and he's also the chair of the expansion committee. So he's kind of an important person in all this, and he'll share with me some of the names of schools that have expressed interest. I think we're in a great spot where we don't need to expand. Like my belief is that 11 is a good enough number. We can do a full round robin schedule in basketball. And for somebody to get a seat at the table, they're going to need to add some value to it. And value can be added in terms of, are they helping our revenue standpoint in terms of will ESPN, increase what they're distributing to the conference? Do they provide an ability for us to sell more tickets to Arch Madness? Do they provide an opportunity for us to get another bid into the NCAA tournament? But it also can mean, from an expense standpoint, are we mitigating our costs? Is it somebody that makes sense from a travel standpoint? Is there somebody as we add a school, are we pushing our footprint in a certain direction? Clearly, with our most recent additions, UIC replaced Loyola, but then the other two with Murray and Belmont, that took us down to the southeast part of our footprint. Is that what the future looks like? Do we continue that expansion? Do we need to provide some balance for losing Missouri State, which is more on the western edge? Do we need to find somebody to counter that? But I think we're in a spot that we don't have to chase anything. I really like kind of where we're at as a league, and there's probably nobody that jumps off the page right away that says, oh, that makes a ton of sense. In time, I think that could be the case. But as I sit here, on March 31st of 2025, I think we're in a good spot that we don't have to add someone just for change's sake. Let's make sure we're doing it for all the right reasons.
All right, Brian, I know you've been busy. We appreciate you taking the time. Good stuff as always, and love to have you back. If you talk to Hendo, just say, hey, come on the show, because I've been reaching out trying to get him on. So we'd love to have him on and introduce him to everybody.
Sounds great. Yeah, I'll see him here in a half hour, so I'll mention it to him.
Excellent. Thanks you so
Brian.
much,
Take care,
and
buddy.
have
Talk
fun
to
at
you
work
soon.
today. We'll talk to you
All
soon.
right. Thanks, guys.